What is dual agency and should you play a part in it? We're going to dig into that right now. All right, now in most states, certainly in my state of Washington, we have agency law. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty about agency law, but simply put, if you're buying or selling a house, you can engage with a real estate agent, a licensed real estate salesperson, to help you buy or sell that home. Signing a listing contract or signing a buyer agency agreement or just simply engaging that agent in a real estate practices would constitute agency from them to you. They owe you a duty per their license to represent you and simply put, just do right by you. They represent you and you are their client. That is agency. They owe you a whole list of duties if they're to be your agent. And this is a good thing because you as the consumer can expect a certain level of care and attention and fiduciary duty from your real estate agent to you. Now, way back when, there was only representation for sellers. So even if there were two real estate agents in a transaction, one that was sort of bringing a buyer and one representing the seller as the listing agent, both agents technically, legally speaking, represented the seller. I wasn't around during that time. It sounds a little bit wacky because it kind of is. But a few decades ago, we had something enter the picture called buyer agency, where a buyer can engage a real estate agent to provide those duties to that buyer. And so the buyer has representation, the seller has representation, and they're both separate, and both agents serve their own respective clients. And usually, this is the best case scenario. This is how it should work, and this is how both people, both parties, can have the best representation possible. Now, there's something called dual agency, where instead of two agents overseeing buyer-seller, you have one agent overseeing the same buyer-seller. That one agent is providing dual agency to both parties in the transaction. So that's what dual agency is. Now the question is, should you engage in a transaction where there's one agent providing dual services to both customers? That, my friend, is ultimately up to you. But my personal opinion is that that is not the best way to transact real estate in this day and age. Here are a few reasons why. First and foremost, when I represent either a buyer or a seller, there's certain information I know about them that would not be helpful if the other party knew that about them as well. When does their job start? They need to be in Seattle by a certain date. That would not be good for a seller to know because they could then play hardball with that buyer and not negotiate as much if they knew that that buyer has a deadline to be on and they need that house. Same goes for the seller. There could be certain bits of information like, I know the number they will take ultimately in a negotiation. What's their bottom line? If I know that, that is not good information to leak out to the buyer. Now, as the one agent providing dual agency to both customers, as the law states that you're not allowed to talk about those secret bits or personal bits of information between the clients. But as the sole agent in a transaction, you can imagine how hard it would be to know one thing about each person, that if you could just bring that bit of information into the transaction, maybe it gets the deal done faster, maybe it moves you past an impasse of negotiation. Maybe as an agent, you're not specifically sharing that information across the party lines, but with your actions and with the way you talk, you're sort of talking around it and bringing people into this and sort of massaging the situation based on what you know of each person. That, my friends, is a very gray place to be in because you're not ultimately providing 100% agency duty to each party. There are a few scenarios where this can be okay. Maybe buyer and seller have already negotiated all of the terms of the contract and they're bringing all of the terms to you and saying, hey, you as an agent, can you represent us and help us get this deal done? As long as both parties are signed off and totally in agreement that dual agency is the way they want to go, that could be a scenario where it's helpful to be the one agent orchestrating the entire transaction because simply put, the buyer and seller are just bringing you into a deal that they've already put together. I find that dual agency often happens in the higher end price points. A lot of off-market deals can happen in the higher end homes, and so a listing agent or an agent that knows of a seller that might want to sell might have a perfect buyer in their Rolodex, so to speak, that they can bring over and say, hey, I will negotiate this transaction for you and put it together as the sole agent, and that would also be a dual agency scenario. So in summary, dual agency is one agent providing agency duties to two different parties, and it's very gray. There are a lot of different ways that things can go sideways very quickly in that transaction, and where that agent providing duties to both people might not be serving either of them very well when it's all said and done. So I hope you found this helpful. Dual agency, it's something to be aware of. It's in all of your contracts that your agent is allowed to do it, but it's a conversation you should have with them in the event that it does pop up. Hope you found this helpful. We will see you on the next video.